Sci-Chronicle is a community organization that aims in spreading scientific facts to the society. So we take all complicated scientific concepts to society in a simpler form. So this is our aim. Let me introduce the speaker for today. Desika is an techno commercial expert. Her expertise is working in environmental sustainability aspect, and she has done multiple projects related to bioplastics. I find her to be most oriented towards environment. So thank you, Desika, once again for joining us today.
Vanakkam, today, and happy Environment Day to all. First, I want to thank Harni for this amazing opportunity. And when she asked, okay, what are you going to talk about on Environment Day? First thing is what that came to my mind was break it down to you in a more simple, stupid, and a holistic fashion of what is the reality out there. So this whole presentation is going to be on that. I've divided this into basically two sections. One is the bullshit part of it, and the other is how to go about unbullshitting it. So there's a concept called triple bottom line: people, profit, and planet, all three spectrums. So this is a business concept which is being integrated to a great level right now, where from a shareholder point of view, like from how businesses were invested completely in pleasing the shareholders, it has kind of gone towards the stakeholders, that is us people and the environment as well. But there is actually a kind of a dark side towards this people, profit, and planet mantra that they're adopting, and I want to give you that dark side towards things. Okay, so first off, bullshitting of the planet. In 2016, it's where this started, something called Paris Agreement. So 196 parties came into setting a goal that will limit the global temperatures to 1.5 degrees Celsius. At least try to keep it to 2, but best try to reduce it to 1.5. But the recent update on how we are going towards it was given by the World Meteorological Organization, and what they're saying is we are at a very bad chance of 50-50%. That is 50% chance that we will not be able to fulfill all of this, and 93%, as high as 93%, they're saying that in the next 5 years, within the next 5 years, it will be the one of the hottest years on record. So as you can see here, a lot of effects of climate change has been shown, and there is real proof as well. In British Columbia, more than 500 deaths because of heat waves, more than 200 deaths because of flooding in Germany, which gave rise to economic losses of more than $20 billion. So we are already, sort of seeing in real time all these effects, and this is only going to grow. We will be facing a lot of in uninhabitable regions. There's going to be a lot of food scarcity, economic losses, all yet to come because of drastic effects of climate change. Even the projections that has been given are not really giving us a consoling data, because we see here with the current policies, it will only give rise to about as high as 2.7 degrees. So our goal was 2 degrees, but with the current policies in place, we'll only be able to go towards 2.7. But what we see here is there is this ambitious gap which we can try to bridge, and that is going to be the make or break of the entire climate change scenario. The optimistic result, so what they're projecting is also a very optimistic version, assuming all the countries and all net zero targets given by companies and corporates are being achieved, then it is possible that we can stay maybe below 2 degrees. But this optimism also sort of fades away when we see what the reality is in terms of bullshitting for profits. So bullshitting for profits, this I want to give it to you in two ways. One is the corruption we see versus the companies, and corruption and the companies, how they are also corrupting us. Sure that we in our lifetime would have definitely come across a situation where we had to come to the system and go towards the corruption route. It's sort of become a DNA of our system, and this is not immune in the case of environmental clearance as well. It is common knowledge that we know there's an environmental clearance which industries take before starting or construction of a new plant, and this is given by Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. You can see here given in a lot of articles, there's a lot of bribery which goes into getting this certification. And more than that, by a recent report on analyzing the performance of how the monitoring is going and how companies are keeping up with these waste management, there are a lot of shortfalls and lot of discrepancies in the whole monitoring itself. More worst thing here is that when we take into consideration the current fast-paced approval systems which are coming into picture, we see that this is just pushing us farther away from all that due diligence and the scrutiny which should go into picture when environmental impact assessments are carried out for the industry. So on another level, let's now take the stand of the company. So what happens is we see that there's like the companies or like MSMEs are trying to balance this the bribe that they are forced to give in terms of their waste management. This seems to have a direct proportionality. At one point, we have to really empathize with these companies because of so much of fluctuations that they face in the market, heavy competition and slim margins which they operate with. Right. So there are even cases where I had first-hand experience where even if the waste management machines are given in a subsidized rate to these MSMEs, they're not actually functional to support the operations, get in labor to take care of it and maintain it. It's beyond the scope for these companies. But this sort of empathy with these companies really fades away when we know how they are corrupting us, companies and corruption. So these are some of the most important ways how companies are contributing to corrupt practices. One is, I'm sure you would have come across with unnecessary packaging. Like most of our orders when we do online, we might have ordered just a small product, but will come with a huge mountain of packaging which is completely unnecessary and it can be reduced. And another important thing is a very age-old trick which we always fall for, using the green color. Just because something is green in color, it immediately translates to in our mind that it is a clean technology, which is really not the case. Third, another important way is how they design the product. When they're designing the product, it should be taken into consideration, is recyclable or not, what is the end of life of this product and how efficiently it can be brought back to the cycle. Say for example, your Lay's chips, you'll see there's an aluminium coating inside as shown in this image, and outside there's a plastic layer which gives you space for the printing and name of ingredients, etc. So this has more than 3 layers of plastics, metals and polymers involved, and it's extremely difficult to recycle it with considering the thin amount of layers that go inside, and of course the food contaminants associated when designing such products. Even for example, the paper coated with a plastic layer. So initially it was wax coating which was there, which is now being replaced with a PLA coated, that is a bioplastic coated layer for preventing that sogging which happens in the cups. So this also again becomes non-recyclable because there are 2 different polymers. So when they design, they take into consideration just one polymer or those that can be completely recycled. That's going to contribute hugely towards the end of the processing. Most important of all is making us fall into trap with the biggest prank ever, the alternative technology. Renewable energy. Is it actually renewing or not? That is a big question. Although yes, solar panels are the way to go, they definitely reduce your carbon emissions, but a huge amount of information just is swept under the rug in terms that if it's not done right, like when you clear up acres and acres of land for construction of these solar panels and windmills, the biodiversity there, how the species are getting affected, the amount of indigenous people who have a livelihood there, the grasslands, yes, most importantly, the grasslands there, which contribute heavily to carbon sequestration. Carbon sequestration is nothing but eating up the carbon in the atmosphere, which we emit. So all of this just gets wiped out at one go when you construct solar panels, which should not be the case. And another side to this is the minerals or the metals that go into these technologies, especially for your electric vehicles, like say lithium, cobalt, cadmium, all these minerals. And this comes directly from huge amount of child labor which goes into countries like Africa. Apart from this, we also see proof, the graph shown here, that the production of solar panels is a highly polluting factor because of especially the mining which goes into place and the amount of toxicity that it has, even to an extent of being carcinogenic. So the red bar indicates the level of pollution that goes into the production phase of solar panels. Although you can see that recycling does not have a negative impact on the environment, our recycling policies are very questionable, and especially in India, we don't have systems in place that can recycle these e-waste which is coming up in a very ethical and a complete manner. Most of it again goes into child labor in northern regions. Another classic example is your bioplastics. So biodegradable and biocompostable used interchangeably but have completely different meanings. Biodegradable is something to do with a natural phenomenon where the ecosystem breaks down your product and decomposes it in a natural way. But biocomposting is something which we trigger with high temperatures. Apart from that, there is also issues with how much of energy in terms of water use, land use, everything that goes into production of the PLA. So PLA, polylactic acid, which is also a biopolymer, comes from lactic acid, which is again ideally from your corn. It is debatable here that essentially goes for your food production. So the data here clearly shows that polypropylene, that is non-woven bags, which are actually going to be banned or is banned in most of the parts of India, is a better alternative than PLA. So plastic is actually a better alternative in terms of water, energy use, expenses that is involved, and the recyclability, the number of lives that it has. So this is the actual scientific evidence out there. All of this corruption comes under a big banner of greenwashing. So greenwashing is the company uses these marketing tactics to make us believe that they're a very eco-friendly company and they're contributing greatly towards the environment. There are something called 7 sins of greenwashing. First is something called a hidden trade-off. You ideally hide some part of the whole picture and then view only which part makes you look good. So this company created dog waste bags. So abroad they usually have these biocompostable dog waste bags to carry or to pack and throw your dog waste. The company claimed in their website that they're compostable and you should make sure that it reaches these composting stations and so on. But there was actually no facilities there, which was not highlighted, which is part of your hidden trade-off. Then there is sin of no proof. So the company you see here is a sustainable fashion brand, and they claim that most of their products or even every product in their website is completely recyclable, but there is no disclosure, there is no proof to back up what materials actually they are using and what percentages go in. Then we have something called vagueness. Vagueness is just like being very blunt with what you are claiming. So H&M is a brand which is being heavily criticized for their vague claims on how they are contributing to the environment. Also, 60% of the whole fashion industry sustainability claims are definitely greenwashing, which has been given by reports. And another interesting sin or example is the lesser of two evils. So lesser of two evils is nothing but the product in itself is harmful, but then they try to make a little less harmful version of it. Burger King, who came up with their beef burger, which cuts down their emissions by 33% because the cow which they, for the meat which they use is being fed with lemongrass. So when they feed it with that, their emissions are being cut is what they claim. But there is no scientific evidence for this, or there is no publication that they gave. And then there's complete irrelevance. Company here, they claim 8% recycled ocean plastic. So when actually they investigated on what is the source of this, we see that there are some people called aggregators who collect these plastics. Basically your kabaddi walas in the street, right? So what this company has done is go to them, pick up the plastic bottle, and they say eventually that would have ended up in the ocean. So we are just saving it from that, and hence it's ocean plastic. Same way with CFCs, it's already being banned, and if they say it's CFC free, doesn't make any sense. Fibbing. So just outright lies. This company is a coffee pot company, and they just made claims that it's completely recyclable. Again, since the coffee pod is having an aluminum coating inside and there's a plastic outer layer, with the coffee residue also, it's not recyclable. And final one is the fake certification and fake claims. So this, I think many people are going to get mad at me for giving this example, because this is a example of Adidas, where a Stan Smith Forever brand is there, and they had claimed 100% iconic, 50% recycled. But in reality, the shoes was not made out of 50% recycled plastic. What we saw here, all these 7 sins presently have come up to a very big sin, I would say, in terms of something called ESG. So ESG is nothing but your environment, social and governance. I mean, this was there few years back itself, but now it's kind of swapping out sustainability as the buzzword right now. Here what happens is, mainly this was come into picture because of promoting transparency in companies, making them account for what is happening across their environment, social and governance departments. So but what is happening in reality is that we can see this in 2 streams. One is the reporting side and one is the rating side. So reporting is basically where companies disclose their information, and there are some standards they follow to disclose this information about how they are, how much they are emitting, what are their child labor policies, and what are their corruption policies. All of that will be disclosed by the company. That is coming under the reporting point of view. So that has a lot of issues, because now only the companies are actually growing towards like data collection and how to, setting up systems to collect all the data. So there's a lot of lack in quality of the data that is there, first thing, and most of the information is not available at all, primarily because they're mostly voluntary reporting now. In India, by 2023, compulsory reporting is also coming into picture, where companies like top 1,000 companies are going to have to disclose their sustainability. You see the rating. So there are companies who rate these reports and give an estimate of how they are doing. Basically like your Energy Star rating, which you will see in your air conditioning or refrigerator. This gave rise to a lot of bigger issues, where one example is the tweet from Elon Musk recently, where his company Tesla was removed from this rating agency of S&P Dow Jones Index. So the reason is that S&P includes a lot of estimating parameters, where social is also a very important parameter, and they had removed his company on the claim that there are a lot of racial issues as well as driverless technology which he is moving towards, so that there's a lot of lack of labor which can come into picture. He heavily criticized, saying that this is ESG sort of thing is a scam, because ExxonMobil, which is in the oil sector, has the top rating. You can see that there is a lot of inconsistencies here, because the rating agencies itself, they are reliant on the public information which is available. Anyone can look up online and find this information. So how far is the consistency is again questionable, and each follow their own pattern. As you can see here, 600 different companies following 600 different rating patterns, and there's so many variations here. All of this greenwashing is happening in ESG aspect as well. So that is one thing that we should take into consideration. So finally, bullshitting of people. So the whole reason that this title came into picture was because of this article, which really inspired me. The opening statement was that 50% of all the articles that come online, right, the journal publications are classified as scholarly bullshit. So bullshitting on people is happening across knowledge and across usage. So this comes under knowledge, where we are just going into this redundant loop sort of thing, where everyone suddenly becomes a sustainability expert. Scholars who are in some other fields of design, engineering, all of this, try to come and fit into this jargons of sustainability and circular economy, which is only promoting a lot of data which is not authentic, which is very repetitive, and even they can't justify its existence. There are some classifications given here as to how repetitive this is. The question that the article tells us to ask is that actually are we contributing something in real time, or is it just like we want to be part of the whole pile? This is also favored by these journals, because citations, as they call it, is heavy for these sustainability or circular economy articles, and then that is unfortunately welcome, and this reduces the whole quality of knowledge available for our next generation. So in terms of usage, these are two examples I want to give you of how we are being made to believe that alternatives are better. So this diagram indicates how the bioplastic version is not outperforming the PP version. As we saw before, something called life cycle assessment is what is the gold standard that is used to identify how significant the product contributes to the environment. So it encompasses all the 5 stages, from raw material to production to usage, transportation and end of life. And this scientific study shows how PP is much better because in terms of its recyclability, and how there's a lot of emissions from the cultivation of crops for bioplastic production. And this is a very, very like heartbreaking example for me, because I was personally someone who was using bamboo brushes and also advocated people to use it. But this particular research took into consideration all 4 types of brushes that we use, from electric brushes, your plastic brushes, bamboo, as well as the replaceable heads sort of brushes. Study shows that bamboo is not your best alternative out there, which is not the most environmentally sustainable product out there. The ideal toothbrush is your plastic brush, which we have been using for ages, because it's completely recyclable and it is actually made completely of the same material. But in case of your bamboo brushes, the handle only is made of bamboo. The bristles is not made of bamboo. Normal plastic which you have in your toothbrush. The ideal way to dispose this bamboo brush is that you have to actually pluck out these bristles and put it in a Ziploc bag. But for that, in that case, a plastic brush which is recyclable is actually much better. So I think we're coming to the final part. A lot of mixed emotions, I believe, with respect to seeing how bullshitting is happening across for the sake of profits, in terms of the planet and in terms of people. I wanted to give you a few, like just 4 points on how we can start our journey towards unbullshitting. First is call out unfair practices. Calling out unfair practices doesn't mean like you have to go and catch a placard and then go march in front of companies, boycott them or do protests, nothing like that. It's just that if you are aware, if you make yourself aware of what is happening, that will help you identify which brand is fair, which brand is unfair, and you can make a much better informed choice. And more importantly, as consumers, we have to only drive the demand. We have to call out and ask for authentic, scientifically verified and proper sustainable products, because we have the right, and you know that consumer is always right, they say, right? So there's so much of right. Second is to understand. So this is especially a request for students and scholars out there. I really humbly request if you can consider constructing technologies which is the need of the hour to actually contribute to some real-time problem out there. So most of the technologies which is there at universities don't get translated to a commercial sense. I've seen this during my time in IIT. There's so much of knowledge out there, so much of research, but there's no translation into commercial sense, because the problem solving does not happen in real time, and the technologies they come out with is not easily integratable into these current production methodologies. It becomes an additional burden. So unless it's economically viable and sort of a long-term solution rather than like a temporary solution with temporary alternatives, if we focus on these kind of things and choose carbon negative approaches, like trying to consume more of these emissions rather than a carbon neutral approach, all these will be highly beneficial in terms of coming to the commercial ground. One such example is the green steel, which is being talked about greatly nowadays, from Sweden, where they had come up with this alternative of 100% fossil free hydrogen, which can be used instead of coke and coal in the steel production process. And again, this is a widely known example of your plant-based meat. So this is also a very good technology which is coming up, and a lot of improvements has been made. Also, the life cycle assessment shows how significant they reduce emissions. 132 grams is only the emission for a vegetable-based meat, but when you take into consider the actual chicken meat, it's more than 1,300. So we can see the vast amount of difference here. Third one is unlearn. So some habits, which is like a muscle memory for us, and we just like end up immediately we have something in the waste, we throw it on the street, or like we immediately have to dispose it off. Refrain from doing such practices, such toxic habits. That's one humble request. And then just believing green is clean is not the way to go. These labels on the left side are all false labels. Anyone can just do that and come up with it. But on the right, you have some trustworthy certifications. Look out for those kind of verified certifications. And of course, don't fall for this marketing Black Friday sale sort of thing. It's not that I'm against shopping, but it's just that there's something called fast fashion, which is extremely environmentally toxic approach where companies churn out cheap fabrics in a very fast manner, like depending on the trends. Finally, this just one attitude. There's this attitude which I've seen among many people. Even I also used to be one of that. Like, it's just one more bag, it's just one more brush that I'm throwing, it's just one more. But if everybody thinks like that, this is not going to translate into any impact, right? So if you know what you're doing, and then like if knowing what is real, what is fake out there, that will eventually lead you to do something. And then when you do, that's how you create a difference. Finally is unlock potential on both a professional and a personal front. Participate in initiatives which are really contributing and having a great impact. And most important of all, nowadays this startup culture is growing tremendously and everyone is going into startup, but actual contribution of a real-time problem is not being addressed. Many people, just for the sake of starting up, go for any problem solving, or they make it a problem and they solve it. That is the unfortunate case, and that's why many of the startups fail as well. But if you are someone who wants to invest in a startup or begin one yourself, please consider going for sustainable and environmentally as well as socially impacting technologies. On a personal front, I would say that please stop believing these myths that sustainability is very expensive or it's very time consuming to do that, or you have to be vegan to be sustainable. Nothing like that. If you reduce your meat consumption also, it's a very big thing. Small steps can go a long ways. The mantra of whole sustainability. I just want to summarize that what all we've seen. I hope that you have enjoyed the session. I've tried to give you two sides of bullshitting and unbullshitting. Lastly, I will just request you to be aware, take action, and if there's something unfair, please react to it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, so thank you, Desika, for this excellent talk on, basically people would have thought that, okay, there is something called sustainability. It is generally when we think about the term, it's like switching to an alternate. Say for plastic means switching to something that is degradable. So I think you have explained it very clearly what exactly sustainability is. The room is now open for questions.
I just want to ask Desika, like, what is ESG? I'm not clear about the ESG. What is ESG?
Yes, so ESG is basically environment, social governance. The reporting style of sustainability, they're trying to bring it into these three banners. So on environment side, what is the pollution from the companies? On social side, how are their child labor policies or working conditions, the time that they are working, and on governance side, how is their board of directors? Are they having a proper legal systems in place? Is there any policies for corruption? How to avoid it? All of that. So these are three sections which have been separated, under which the reporting by companies will be taking place. So only now targeted towards the investor, rather than towards creating impact. And that is unfortunate. What they say is that if a company is very good in ESG, return on investment is very good. So the investor is now forced to look into that as a financial component. But if it was actually created because to have a real-time impact, and that's unfortunately not happening. So we are still questionable on how ESG is going to impact. I just would like to thank Harni for this amazing opportunity, and I hope you had some takeaway from this session. You can always connect with me on LinkedIn under Desika Prabakar. I would love to, if you are not able to access any information, how to be aware of what is happening, you can write to me and I will be able to help you with whatever I know, and to make your journey easier. And I hope this session was useful. Thank you again, Harni, for this, and thank you, Sci-Chronicle. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Desika.
Thank you.